You got what you wanted. Maybe it took months. Maybe it took years. The promotion, the relationship, the number on the scale, the apartment, the milestone you told yourself would finally make things feel different. And then you got it. And for a moment, maybe a few hours, maybe a few days, it did feel different. And then it didn't. And then something worse than disappointment arrived. Not sadness exactly. Something quieter and more confusing than that. A flatness, an emptiness. A faint but unmistakable sense that something is wrong with you for not feeling the way you are supposed to feel. Nothing is wrong with you. Your brain did exactly what it was built to do. And once you understand how, you will never be blindsided by this feeling again. The mechanism has a name. Psychologists call it hedonic adaptation. The tendency of the human mind to return to a stable baseline level of happiness regardless of what happens to it, positive or negative. You win the lottery, you are paralyzed in an accident. Within roughly a year, on average, most people return to approximately the same level of subjective well-being they had before. The research behind this is extensive and uncomfortable. A landmark 1978 study by Philip Brickman, Dan Coates, and Ronnie Janoff-Bullman compared the happiness levels of lottery winners with people who had recently become paraplegic and with a control group. The lottery winners were not significantly happier than the control group. The accident survivors were not significantly less happy. The difference in circumstance was enormous. The difference in reported happiness was not. Your brain does not experience your life as it is. It experiences your life relative to what it has become accustomed to. And it recalibrates constantly, automatically, without your permission, to make whatever you have feel normal. This is not a flaw. This is survival engineering of the highest order. An organism that remained permanently satisfied with any given state would stop striving, stop seeking, stop competing for resources, relationships, status, safety. Hedonic adaptation is the mechanism that keeps you moving. The discomfort after achievement is not ingratitude. It is the system working correctly, resetting the baseline so that the next level of striving can begin. But understanding why it exists does not make it hurt less. To understand where it comes from, you have to go back to the dopamine system. The same system behind the scrolling, the snacking, the compulsive checking. Dopamine is not released when you get the reward. It is released in anticipation of the reward, in the pursuit, in the closing of the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Wolfram Schultz, a neuroscientist at Cambridge whose work on dopamine neurons earned him some of the most significant recognition in modern neuroscience, demonstrated through decades of primate studies that dopamine neurons fire in response to the prediction of reward. And crucially, they stop firing or even suppress below baseline when the reward actually arrives and matches expectations. The moment of getting what you wanted is neurologically underwhelming by design. Your brain was built to want, not to have. This is the gap between the wanting system and the liking system, a distinction first clearly articulated by neuroscientist Kent Berridge at the University of Michigan. Wanting and liking are not the same process in the brain. They do not even involve the same neural circuits. Wanting is driven by dopamine, by the seeking system, by the forward-pulling anticipation of reward. Liking, the actual experience of pleasure when you have the thing, is driven by a separate, smaller, quieter system involving opioid receptors. The wanting system is loud. The liking system is quiet. and the wanting system is almost always larger than the liking system can satisfy. Think about the last time you wanted something badly. The fantasy of having it was vivid. The imagined future version of yourself with the thing was detailed, specific, emotionally charged. And then you got it. And the actual experience of having it was flatter than the imagined version. Not because you chose the wrong thing, because the imagined version was produced by the wanting system, which is not trying to accurately represent reality. It is trying to motivate pursuit. It will exaggerate the reward. It will filter out the inconveniences. It will make the destination look better than it is so that you keep walking toward it. Harvard psychologist Daniel Gilbert, in his research on affective forecasting, our ability to predict how we will feel in the future, found that people consistently overestimate how much positive events will improve their happiness and how long that improvement will last. We are bad at predicting our own emotional future. Not randomly bad. Systematically bad in the direction of overestimation. We think winning will feel better than it does. We think losing will feel worse than it does. And after either event, we return to baseline faster than we predicted we would. Gilbert called this the impact bias, the belief that events will impact us more than they actually do. There is another layer beneath this. When you spend months or years pursuing a goal, you construct a psychological identity around the pursuit. The person working toward the promotion is not just working toward a promotion. They are being the person who is ambitious, disciplined, striving, growing. The goal gives shape to the days. It gives meaning to the sacrifices. It gives a story to the self. And when the goal is achieved, all of that scaffolding comes down at once. The pursuit ends. The identity built around the pursuit suddenly has no object. The discipline has no target. The sacrifice has been paid. What is left is just life, without the narrative that made it feel purposeful. This is what psychologists sometimes call the arrival fallacy, a term popularized by positive psychology researcher Tal Ben-Shahar. The false belief that arriving at a destination will deliver a lasting state of satisfaction. It cannot, not because the destination was wrong, but because humans are not built for destinations. We are built for movement, for progress, for the feeling of closing in on something that matters. And here is the part that should reframe everything. The emptiness you feel after achievement is not a sign that the goal was wrong. It is a sign that you are a human being. It is the most predictable response in the world to getting what you want. The research does not show that happiness is impossible. It shows that happiness is almost never where we think it is. It is not in the arrival. It is not in the having. It is in the particular quality of the pursuit, in the meaning attached to the striving, in the engagement with the process, in the connection with others that the journey makes possible. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi spent his career studying what he called flow, the state of complete absorption in a challenging activity that people consistently report as among the most positive experiences of their lives. Not the moment of finishing, the doing. Athletes describe it in performance. Musicians describe it in playing. Surgeons describe it in operating. The common thread is not reward. It is engagement with something difficult enough to require full attention and achievable enough to produce forward movement. The sweet spot between boredom and anxiety, where the self disappears into the task. You have felt it. You just might not have recognized it as the thing worth pursuing. The research on what actually produces lasting well-being, as distinct from temporary happiness spikes, points consistently away from achievement and toward a small cluster of things: deep relationships, contribution to something beyond the self, autonomy over how time is spent, engagement with meaningful work, physical health. These are not glamorous answers. They do not make good goal-setting frameworks. They do not fit easily into a 5-year plan. But they are what the data shows, replicated across cultures, across income levels, across life circumstances. The things most people spend their lives chasing turn out to be relatively weak predictors of how good those lives feel from the inside. This is not an argument against ambition. It is an argument for understanding what ambition is actually for. Goals are not valuable because achieving them produces lasting happiness. They are valuable because they organize the present. They give direction to attention and energy. They create the conditions for the engagement, the growth, the connection that actually produce well-being. The goal is the scaffolding. The life lived in pursuit of it is the building. So when the emptiness comes, and it will come because it always does, the question is not what went wrong. The question is what comes next. Not because the answer to emptiness is always another goal, but because the human brain does not do well with stillness that has no direction. Not because rest is bad, because meaning requires movement. And movement requires somewhere to go. You got what you wanted. That feeling was real. The flatness after it is real too. Both of them are telling you the same thing. You are not a creature built for arrival. You're built for the road. The dissatisfaction is not a malfunction. It is the invitation to keep going.